As I mentioned before, over the last 10 years, we've spent over $20 million in funding. And up until the last few years, we've usually had a commitment of about $3 million a year for our summer projects that I referenced earlier. The last 2 years, because of the uncertainty of finance, we've needed to trim that budget a little bit. And so the summer projects, just like everything else, is feeling the pinch of the economy. So what does this mean for our facilities? This year our budget is $1 million. And it makes it difficult with $1 million when you have something come up that's a crisis, that needs taken care of right away. We had a situation like that over the summer with the boilers at Prairie Middle School needing to be replaced, and the bill on that was about $300,000. That was a significant chunk out of the $1 million we had to spend. And so, unfortunately, we're in a little bit more of a reactive position than being proactive, but I think we feel pretty good about where we've come to this point and where we sit, that while we don't desire to be reactive, because we're in such good shape, we have a little bit of luxury to relax a little bit. Now, we have a 5-year projection, just like the Finance Committee does, about what projects will be in our 5-year future. We anticipate about $500,000 a year in roofing projects throughout the district. Now, depending on the building, it might be a little bit more, it might be a little less. We've done some pretty extensive analysis to determine when the roofs really need to be handled. And we continue to analyze that data all the time. The renovation to the station locker rooms. If you've ever had a student at station or been in the station locker rooms, if you went to station, you recognize the locker rooms because they're the same as when the building was built. So you can imagine some antiquated spaces. We also have restrooms at Grove that are original to the Grove building. The other thing that's out there on the horizon that's kind of a larger sum of money is hooking up Rose School to water and sewer, that through the annexation agreement with the Woods property, which is just west of Bartlett Road, water and sewer were brought to the corner of Bartlett and Penny Road, and so part of that agreement allows the school district to hook up to that. And if any of you live on the property with well and septic, I do. If your power goes out, you have no water, you can't flush your toilet because your pump won't work. There's a lot of reasons why, if you have the option to be on city water and sewer, that you would want to do that, especially for a school. So that's something that we have on our list of to-dos as well. And I have to still mention this too, we still do have children in 12 mobile classrooms in our district, so that's a facility to us too. Undoubtedly, every year there's things that come up that jump on the list, they fall off the list, depending on the needs. As a facilities committee, we scrutinize the list with the administration, we prioritize the list based on needs and what we have to spend, and we will just continue to do that and make the best decisions possible for our district with what we have. So I'm going to turn it over to Sandra now, who's going to talk to us about the people who inhabit our buildings.
Thanks. Yeah, so now we're going to talk, maybe not so much in dollars and cents, but now in very important numbers of the children in the district. So here we're looking at day one numbers, so a total of a little over 9,000, and in the 30-day numbers, we're up just a little bit from that, 38 overall. We're up a little bit in elementary and high school areas. We do monitor the enrollment very closely here in 220. We use demographers. We have class size guidelines that we'll look at on the next slide. We provide full-time equivalent contingency to the superintendent for him to use at his discretion, and we also have our enrollment monitoring committee, which I was a part of prior to my recent board service. So we have lots of different ways that we monitor our enrollment. We have decided not to do a demography study this year. We wanted to wait for the census data and provide more data. So we will be talking to the demographer in the fall or over the summer to get those numbers updated, and we'll then be able to have better projections on what our role will be in the future. based on their data. The class size guidelines that are used by the administration get reviewed by the Board of Education, at least on an annual basis, and they're factored into every decision that gets made by the Board of Education. Every time we make a change or whatever, we're always asking how is that impacting the class sizes in the classrooms. And I mentioned the contingency that we give to the superintendent every year. We do that so that he can act quickly whenever we have a situation where we need to make a change. I think we gave a little bit of a bump to that last year based on some of the rejections that we made. And historically, we haven't been using all the contingency, but we do have that there so that we can make fast decisions. Okay, so now let's take a look at the elementary numbers. So in the parentheses under each grade level, you'll see the guidelines. So you can see where, what we're measuring against in each of these percentages. The thing really to look at here is that we have, more than 90% of our classrooms that are within or under guidelines right now. So we're in really good shape at the elementary level. We do have some classrooms, 9% of our classrooms are over the guidelines. All of our kids don't always come in neat packages, so we do have to monitor that. And we look at that constantly to make sure that we know where we are there and can react quickly and make adjustments as necessary. Overall, our enrollment is down in the elementary area, but we do have enrollment up in Huff area and Sunny Hill area. Huff appears that in the first and second grade level, it's a manageable bubble right now, and Sunny Hill is more spread across all the grade levels. There are some programs we have in place, like the dual language program, that help alleviate some of the increase in enrollment in that area. As I mentioned, we're over guidelines in about 9% of our classrooms. Just to give some perspective on that, that's 15 classrooms over more than 165 classrooms across the district. So we'll make sure that we know exactly how many classrooms we're talking about here as well. Third grade, we're a little bit higher than some of the other areas. In third grade, that equates to 4 classrooms in third grade that were above the guidelines. Okay, so let's look at the middle school numbers. In the middle school, we look at things a little bit differently. We divide between the core and exploratory. Core is defined and exploratory there at the bottom of the slide. Again, we're over 90% of our classrooms are in, 90% of our class sizes are less than 30 students, so that's very good. In our 2 middle schools, our overall enrollment is about 2,200. More than half of that is at Prairie, just about 1,200 students at Prairie right now, which is a little bit of a concern, but we do see, and then even next year we're going to have some relief and look to be less than 1,200 students at Prairie. An example of how we monitor the class size is recently, as this year station has lowered class sizes by reallocating existing classes in science and in history to bring those class size numbers down. And as Penny mentioned and Brian mentioned, we do have 6 mobile classrooms in both of our middle schools, which is a direct reaction to monitoring class sizes in order to keep the class sizes down. Was a significant reason why we put in those mobile classrooms. Okay, so high school. Again, a significant number, about 95% of our classrooms have 30 students or less. In this chart, we're looking at the average core class size. So not included in there are the disciplines that are listed at the bottom of the slide. Again, we monitor this very, very closely. Second semester, we're going to be adding another junior English class to help reduce the class sizes that are significantly high in that area and help in this area. So now let's talk a little bit about how we monitor the enrollment through our enrollment monitor. Penny's going to talk to that. Beginning.
Ironically, this is the place where Sandra and I first met. This is where Sandra served as the chair of the enrollment monitoring committee during its maiden voyage, shall we say. And did such a good job that I convinced her to do this too. Anyway.